The prime goal of government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority. And in order to do that, you've got to fragment the majority so they really can't get together and do very much. And you have to concentrate power in the wealth of the nation.
Afternoon. I'm Michael Malice. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. What is the use of a loaded gun if you don't have your finger on the trigger? Well, we have the man here who's going to answer that question, I guess, better than everyone. I don't use the word hero loosely, and I do use the word "and hero" loosely, but I'm going to stick to the first one, hero, here. We have Cody Wilson, the guy behind Defense Distributed, who is perhaps the best example I can think of in contemporary culture who is actually affecting change for freedom in a non-reversible way. The points I just made on Twitter yesterday is we've been having the same arguments since the French Revolution. If your goal about changing a culture and bringing about freedom is persuading a majority of people, you're screwed. Even if you do manage to do that, how much work is that? It's still going to have to change every few years as more people are born and people die off. Whereas the answer I always say is technology is what's going to save us. Technology is asymmetric. Me and my password are stronger than 350 million Americans because they can't get in. And Cody is behind Defense Distributed, and you are the man who is making it technically and feasibly impossible to impose gun control laws.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me. I feel that way. Yeah. I feel that way. Yeah.
So, do you not? So, I mean, I want to hear your thoughts on that. Do you not agree? Obviously, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you not agree that the way to go forward is not through persuasion? Let people think whatever the heck they want, as long as they can't input their ideology onto me and my life.
Yeah. Well, sure. I'm a libertarian. I think we're both libertarian in our attitudes, but I'm so actually interested in politics and the continuation of politics. But in the present moment, you have to continue politics by other means. And my answer is, well, integral accidents are the continuation of politics by other means. So you have to end up using the internet and bizarre, ironic technical effects to do things like, oops, now guns are downloadable, and that's now changed the configuration of the real.
So let's explain to the audience exactly what Defense Distributed does.
Man, we were a software company when we started. We began 3D printing components for firearms just to demonstrate, if you will, that the state really had no place in this closed loop. You could go to the internet, you could download a file, you could put it on a 3D printer, which is connected to your computer. So the cycle of producing a gun never involved the state at any point. And then the state decided, well, it should involve us. And so for the last 5 years, I fought the federal government in court over this display. And in that time, I became a hardware company as well. I manufacture equipment now that helps you make guns for yourself outside of the state.
Right.
And then recently I won my case, and now I guess I'm back to being a software company again as well.
So this is something else that's kind of interesting because, I mean, those of us who are listening, some people might be too young to remember this. Back in the day, there was one file-sharing company, it was Napster. And Metallica lost their minds, and they were flipping out, and they were saying, oh, Napster is stealing our records, so on and so forth, and distributing crappy music. And they succeeded, I think, to some extent to getting Napster either shut down or having it be a pay service. And then everyone on the internet said, okay, we're just going to make a literal billion Napsters because it takes 1 second to make a mirror site. And then how are you going to possibly wipe them out? And the same thing is what you're doing with files. It's like if you have a 3D printer, and if you have this file, which you can download in 1 second, which I'm sure the file is not that big, I can now produce a gun in my home, not only without regards to the state, without regards to gun manufacturers, gun shows. Literally, no one will ever know. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, and people are getting that message. You don't have to really go beyond that. You don't have to agree with my weird meta-politics or anything. You just have to, agree that, well, this is what the digital revolution has allowed to be possible. Am I coming through all right?
Yes,
my
you're coming through great. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's basically it. I've got a bunch of rednecks and boomers and stuff that buy my technology, and they say, yeah, thanks, whatever, anarchism, sure. But the important thing is that they have the equipment and they can make firearms. California just arrested one of my customers a couple months ago. When they went to go to his house, he had 15 AR-15s, and they had no idea that they were there.
Right, because they're not licensed, and there's no reason for them to be licensed. It's something that's done in the privacy of their own home. And the other point is what you were saying, this is important. I think the more important thing is you can think whatever you want about me and my guns. You will never know. What I do in my home is my business. And feel free to live your life as you please. Worship whatever God you want. Read whatever books you want. Kurt Schlichter, who is a great follow on Twitter. Me and him interact all the time. He's a lawyer, and he writes for, I think, Town Hall. People will sit down with him on Twitter and say, I just want to have an honest conversation with you about guns. And Kurt says, or how about screw you and I'll do what I want. and to me, that's what freedom is. What people don't understand, there's this idea on the left that the personal is the political, and you have to be able to justify every action to everybody else. And we're at all times in the trial of public opinion. And my point is, because I want to is my answer. I don't owe you an explanation if I'm not trying to interact with you or trying to harm you.
I think that's fair. I mean, I'm a romantic when it comes to the political. Like when I see the conversations about, well, let's have a conversation, let's talk, or let's have civil discourse. I don't know. That seems to me like from the position of power. These are people who understand, or at least believe that they've largely encapsulated what it is they think they can. I don't know what they're discussing, but for me, I look for things that can run wild or set themselves loose. And what's exciting to me about this moment is that we actually have no superintendents at all anymore over the fate of the firearm. It's liquid and it's information now, and there will be endless markets of this stuff online. Who knows who will benefit? There will be this uneven distribution of this content all over the world, and for me that spells maybe a possibility. Yeah. And that's the only thing that gets me up in the morning.
I mean, let's look at it this way. If you want to go far left, how great would it be if there's some country where the entire population is disarmed and oppressed, and they can just print guns to defend themselves against the thugs of the state? I mean, this was the reason PayPal was invented. PayPal was invented originally so that people in countries like Venezuela or countries where their currency is appropriated by the government would be able to send their money to another place on Earth at the speed of light and have it be secured. And that succeeded beyond their wildest dreams.
Man, I hate PayPal, but of course your point is correct. Like the internet allows for technologies to totally saturate the global, right? Our minds are in diaspora across these networks. And of course now the gun is bizarrely another of the internet technologies. That can be both good and bad. But in our case, our desperation to have to force change upon the world, you simply have to contend with the fact that guns are downloadable. You don't get to vote on that.
Right.
And that's what's exciting to me. Same thing. You didn't get to vote on the advent of Bitcoin or any of the internet monies. This just now is something you have to adjust to, and it's fun telling a progressive that he just has to adjust.
Michael Malice here. Want to tell you guys about our first sponsor on this show at ShaveCleanMaintain.com. It's great to have them on board. I love their gear. They're bringing you the barbershop experience at home. It's a collection of grooming products that are going to make it easy for you to look and smell your best. None of this high school Axe polo sport garbage. If you're an adult and want to present yourself well, you get the shaving cream, you get the aftershave lotion. It leaves your skin healthy, clean, and soft. ShaveCleanMaintain.com has a shampoo to conquer oily hair, beards, and stink, and leaves you with a rich sandalwood scent. And if you go to ShaveCleanMaintain.com and use promo code You're Welcome, you'll get free shipping on your order and get to support a sponsor of the show. ShaveCleanMaintain.com, promo code You're Welcome. Let's talk about the press, because so much of the press is used to framing things in a very certain specific framework, to be redundant. Especially conservatives, when I talk conservatives, they regard things as that which exists is pretty much a given and is not open to change. They don't understand kind of radical approach that well, we're in a constitutional republic, we have the press, therefore they somehow can be made to work, as opposed to my idea that just because something's been around for a while doesn't mean it can be fixed or should be fixed, right? So when you talk to members of the press and you're like, no, this isn't, NRA, which are the moderates, versus, demand gun sense. This is, you guys can go talk in your corner. We're going to do what we want. And you're literally completely irrelevant. Do journalists ever have a problem wrapping their heads around this?
Yeah, I think so, because everything, as you understand, is based on media narratives or preconceived templates. What's so funny, like when the New York Times picked up this story of ours, like whenever we won the suit, they ran it up the chain to the Brady group and to the Gabby Giffords group and stuff, and those groups were caught flat-footed. What was their response? To file emergency FOIA requests to the government to see what the NRA did, right? What the NSSF did. Well, sorry, they weren't even involved,
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure you're not an NRA fan, particularly.
I mean, look, I'm glad they exist. I want to
Sure.
be clear. Like, I'm glad they exist. I got this quote floating out there that, like, look, what have they done for you lately?
Right.
But right. And so now our enemy didn't even have the vocabulary to understand what just happened to them.
Right.
Of course, it's something. It's this perpetual thing. It's Batman and Joker. It's Gabby Giffords versus the NRA or something. Yeah, they're just playing catch up all the time now.
Yeah, I was on Kennedy on Fox Business, and I made the point that the NRA are the moderates, and Gun Owners of America are the ones who are actually the 2A people. And the whole panel laughed at me to my face. And I'm not. I'm from Brooklyn. I don't carry or anything like that. But I went online. I'm like, am I misunderstanding this? And everyone's like, no. Like among actual hardcore Second Amendment people, the NRA are regarded as the Mitt Romneys. It's only when the basis of your perspective is this kind of New York Times, Washington Post thing that the NRA are the far right nuts.
Right. I mean, and look, I'm friendly with Dana. I'm friendly with board members of the NRA now. That wasn't always the case, but they exist as a successful pressure group, a successful affiliate marketing group, if you will, a very good fundraiser. But their litigation strategies, especially national, have been non-existent. Most of the Second Amendment law we care about in the courts was developed by the Second Amendment Foundation, and most of the fighting that we would care to see is done by groups like Larry Pratt and Gun Owners of America. And the NRA is a reluctant party to many of these things, as you could see, like in the case of Heller. Maybe this is getting a bit off topic, but the most important Second Amendment decision we care about, the NRA basically spent most of that case history trying to derail the thing entirely until it finally went to the Supreme Court, and they demanded incredibly rare ex parte oral arguments and stuff. They have a shameful history in the actual development of our Second Amendment.
So for those who don't know, the Heller decision, which was basically libertarian activism in a sense, there were a bunch of people in Washington, D.C. who tried to get gun licenses knowing they would be turned down. And then they sued, saying this violates my Second Amendment right because the Supreme Court had never judged in 200 years about whether, and please correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, Cody, that the Second Amendment applies to militias, given how it's phrased with that weird clause, or whether it is in fact an individual right. Most of these parties were thrown out of case on technical grounds because I'm sure the courts didn't want to wade into this. The Supreme Court took the case and affirmed that yes, the Second Amendment is an individual right. Now, I had not heard until now that the NRA fought this. Can you tell me what happened there?
Oh yeah, the NRA was, from a conservative point of view, they were terrified that Heller would be a bad vehicle, right? That the Supreme Court would go 5-4, that there isn't an individual right to keep, right? So they would much rather, maintain the current situation. Let's keep it in the suspended ambiguity. The activists, the people that like Cato and Saf and the people that put the case together, they did it without the NRA's involvement. And so by the time you got to the briefings at the Supreme Court, the NRA was asking to be granted as an extra party to contribute its own oral arguments. And lower at lower courts, it was actually trying to fight against the parties to make sure that they weren't heard. This is, you can look all this up. Alan Gura, the appellate attorney who gave us Heller and McDonald, is still to this day steamed about the NRA. I'm not trying to cause fights here. I just want people to know, facts.
Right. So it's actually funny. So, but in their defense, it sounds more like they thought this was a game of Russian roulette, and if it did go the other way, that would be really, really bad. Well,
sure, but you can recognize what's fundamentally conservative activism. And that's what it is. The NRA, let's remember that its history was to give us the 1968 Gun Control Act.
Right.
Its history was to enforce the Firearm Owners Protection Act, which banned automatics. And, any single time like there's been an episode of gun violence in this country, the NRA's position is to sit down and say, okay, we'll give you this, and in exchange we'll keep this. Well, that's not my approach, and other people don't have an appetite for that either.
Yeah. How about I give you nothing and you go away?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
That's one approach. That's my approach. Like it's like with taxes. It's like let's have an income tax. Let's cap it at 10%. And I'm like, or how about 0? And you have a nice life, and I wish you nothing but the best.
right. Go pound sand, right? Like, how are
Yeah.
you going to vote about what I'm doing? And while you're thinking about that, let me show you this next thing that we're going to do.
Right.
That's
So
my approach. And go ahead.
no, I want to ask you about, taking on the federal government as someone who's an anarchist. This must be something on some level that you must have been. I mean, listen, I'm from the Soviet Union. Were you not at different points scared for your life?
Oh, maybe I should have been, and I'm accused of being naive all the time. Though, look, you can see that I can't be that naive. I'm able to navigate this thing
Sure.
from time to time. And was I scared for my life? No, not really. I don't think there's a specific intelligence or like a general personality to government. Kind of like Rothbard says about bureaucracy, you have to just use what you know about bureaucratic structures to your advantage. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing most of the time. Like this settlement with the DOJ, most of this came from the tectonics of just outlasting multiple governments and multiple initiatives. So there was this lingering export control reform thing kind of happening with State Department. The Obama DOJ forgot that they really cared about this case. The Trump DOJ never cared about it in the first place. And so there was the creation of incentives at every little level to just get people to forget about the case or to settle it or to get it off their desk. And any individual bureaucrat no longer cared or was motivated to handle this thing. So the only specific intentionality was mine and my appellate attorneys. Look, I'm not sure that you can derive anything general from this, but as long as you can be like the free radical within these systems, no particular level of the bureaucracy actually understands what it is you're trying to do.
So they don't realize how, I'm going to use the wrong word, but how dangerous what actually went down went down.
Like, I don't know. There is no they in my mind. There is
Okay,
no.
that's what you're saying.
Right. There's no way to personalize it or characterize it. It's just this was dealing with the glacial interconnectedness of the Department of Homeland Security and the DOJ and the Department of State and a specific bureau within the Department of State. And remember that in the Trump era, most of these agencies are on autopilot. They don't even have some of the undersecretaries even
Right.
appointed. So, it's this beautiful, if you can see it, it's like seeing the Matrix,
Oh yeah,
and,
red pill.
and you
baby.
can navigate it. You can, there's these hallways you can walk through. I'm not calling them fools. They're doing what they're doing, but at least you can, with your theory, with our libertarian theory, you can understand what it is that they want to do and depend upon this, and every now and then chart a course and get through to victory like this one.
So this is the question I always ask people, and I think it's clear with the answer you would have. Whenever I meet someone, I can't wait to interview more politicians because I want to ask them which is more accurate to reality, Veep or House of Cards. And from everything I've seen, it's much more Veep than House of Cards. That if these people were brilliant masterminds, they wouldn't be bureaucrats. They'd be George Soros, or they'd be the Koch brothers or something like that, or the Mercers. They're not going to be driving a desk, living in D.C. or Virginia. You know what I mean? It's so much easier to be effective, other than a bureaucrat.
That's my suspicion too. But at the same time, really, they enable really terrible things, and the intelligence community is real. And I've learned so many bizarre things about how the contractors of government really are dangerous people. But the actual government itself, right? This is incredible. It's a carnival of power. They're a bunch of clowns. There's like a sociology of it, even, that we can describe, where it's this incredible masquerade where all these fools are trying to hand off like real power to each other, because power is a dangerous and volatile thing. So maybe there's even a social function. It's important that your government be idiotic and incompetent. I don't know.
So this was let's walk through this lawsuit. This has been a 5-year process.
Yeah, it took a long time.
How did you find out you were getting sued?
Well, here's the thing. I never got sued. I brought the suit from the beginning.
Okay.
So what happened was when I shared the first printed pistol in May of 2013, the government decided at that point, it was Obama's national security staff, decided to use the ITAR and the State Department to tell me to stop.
Okay.
I had a big file sharing website at the time. Talk about Napster, right? I had this kind of network site. And I took that site down.
And just one more to interrupt. As soon as you took it down, those files were on Pirate Bay and all over the world, infinitely copied, instantly. Yeah.
Of course. And in fact, because they were taken down, they became much more interesting globally, right?
Right.
Like that's the other aspect. That's the
Streisand
whole
effect.
Streisand.
Yeah.
So if that hadn't happened, like I'm not sure how popular they would have been, but because they were hot commodities, Liberator became known as like, oh, the first printed gun. So it took about a year then after that to even get a team together. And it's not just like they told me, hey, stop, and then that was it. But no, they began to involve me in this enforcement process, which was ultimately going to conclude with my criminal or civil, penalty or prosecution, something like that. Anyway, they were so slow about that I went from being in a defensive posture to being in a, wait a minute, like I can bring the heat on this. I can put a team together faster. So it took me about a year, but I convinced Electronic Frontier Foundation and Alan Gura and Alan Gottlieb of SAF and all these great appellate attorneys involved in the Second Amendment. And I was like, well, maybe I can put together a great First or Second Amendment case. And then I got a great export attorney. And then, by May of 2015, I was suing the feds in the Western District of Texas, and we began.
That must have felt great, because I'm sure at the very first moment, and I had something similar things happen, there's that moment of trauma. It's like, holy crap, my life's in disarray now, and I've got the Eye of Sauron on me. And then after the adrenaline calms down and a few weeks pass, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm in no bodily harm. I wake up in the morning, I still can feed myself. Then you're like, hold on, wait a minute, what the? No, they're not getting away with this crap. I'm not powerless. So
you must have lived it, because that's so accurate.
Yeah, and I have. And then I'm like, and at a certain point, you're like, you know what? I'm just going to fold and just hope this all goes away. I'm like, wait a minute. If I fold, they win. Why am I letting these people get away with this crap? I didn't do anything wrong. And they're the villains.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I never wanted to fold, but I had these lawyers in the beginning who were like, no, look, you gotta wait. Let's see what they do. And, let's be in this defensive frame of mind. And so my questions on the phone would always be like, sorry, we got a train.
Oh my God! Where are you? Where are you right now?
I'm literally on the wrong side of the railroad tracks.
No, but what state are you in?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Oh, okay, awesome. Okay. Oh, you're okay. You're with Goldstein, with my good friend.
Oh, of course.
Bitstein on Twitter. Follow him, guys. He's great.
Okay, he's a board member of my company. Has been from the beginning.
He's a great guy.
Oh, incredible! Bitcoin maximalist. You learn a lot from this guy. You learn to become a carnivore. He'll ruin your life. So check him out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to have him on the show.
Oh, he'd love to be here, man.
Oh, I mean, me and him are very close friends. So
that's right. He's told me. I'm sorry, man. I forgot. Well, look, the big thing was going from a place of, well, how long is it going to be till I'm in jail?
Right.
To saying, wait a minute, like we can bring the heat, and then that happened, and that's, I think, an important thing to learn.
So, I mean, it's still such a glacial, laborious process, right? So, at what points did they start? And again, like you said, administrations last 4 years, right? People cycle in, cycle out. This is your life. For somebody else, it's a file on their desk, right? At what point did they start retreating?
Well, they never really did. In fact, they won pretty much every step of the way. Okay. We spent about 2 years on motions practice, just trying to get an injunction. They won everywhere. Now, they were never given, like the judges or the panels would never say, well, the government has a likelihood of success on the merits. But everyone was broadly collusive with each other about the fact that it was important that I not win anything.
Right.
Like everyone knew what the result is here that they wanted to avoid. So it finally just got to a point where, look, I can't explain, it's beyond causes, but when it finally got down to the merits, it was such a bad First Amendment case at that point, developed in the record to be such a bad case, that I really think they just meant to run away from it. No one really wanted to fight this on First Amendment grounds. They looked for any way out, and we allowed power to save face to some degree,
right?
Because they didn't have to admit that they didn't have the power.
Yep.
But conveniently they say, sure, we have the power, but okay, we're gonna, conveniently for them, but we're gonna give it up at some point. So as long as you say that we don't, as long as you say that we have the power, just acknowledge that we have it. You get to do whatever you want.
Yeah, and this is such negotiating 101. You see this with, in my view, Trump and North Korea. It's like, you can say what you need to say as long as you do what I need you to do. So you can call me whatever you want. I'm this, I'm that. You're wonderful. I'm the devil. That's fine as long as you do what I want. That's all that matters. There's this great line from Intervention, the show some people have watched about addicts, which, sometimes you watch a show and there'll be just one profound line and it resonates with you for years. So they'll have the pre-intervention. It's the interventionist and the family. and he's getting them all prepped. They're like, look, it's going to be traumatic for everyone, blah, blah. And Jeff Van Vondren was the guy's name. And he tells them, he goes, look, tomorrow it's either a yes or a no. Everything else is just noise. So yes, blah, 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 blah. No, you're the devil. I hate you. That's fine. It's either everything, it's noise. And that's really, when it comes to the government, it's like, okay, are you going to do what I want or are you not? And everything else, I don't care. And it's going to be bullshit anyway.
This was the comment. I mean, the government isn't really going to shape the PR on this. It's rare enough for you to beat the government, but it's rare still for them to settle when they're the defendants. So anyway, they don't. They're not really saying much about this when they're asked for comment right now. But when they will say something, they'll say, "Well, we'll point out that plaintiffs here didn't win," and that's what was important to them. Like the government is still in charge. The government is still the government. Power is still all the signs of power.
Right.
But it's funny, like when you have our point of view, like okay, sure, you're still in charge, boss.
Yeah, that's nice.
Thank you for letting me do what I'm going to keep doing.
Yeah, you're in charge. I'm going to make guns in my garage, but you're in charge, and I completely accept your authority and look up to you. Absolutely. Take care.
That's all they ask. That's all they ask. And if you can abide by that as an anarchist, if it doesn't destroy your conscience, then you can get quite a bit done.
Yeah, it's also kind of reminds me of some of these people who think, these like hardcore anarchists who are also on some level constitutionalists, who think if you just say the right things to the police, like they're going to act appropriately, like it's like some magic spell, like, according to this, blah, 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 and as opposed to they're empowered to do what they want and later make up rationalizations for it,
Right.
It's like,
Am I being detained?
Am I being detained? I say this on Twitter all the time. You know what I mean? Like, am I being detained? Oh, well, you say it's like when you say that to a cop, their guns fall off their pants, and
I gotta let you go.
Yeah, now I surrender to you. Now you're the cop.
Yeah, right this way, sir.
Yeah, so it's just absolutely amazing to me. Wait, so I got to ask on a personal level. I mean, do the people you're in Austin, which is very lefty. It's like it's where Whole Foods got started. It's where if you want to think of stuff white people like, it's Austin. It's the most white bread progressivism there is. Do people regard you as literally like the devil or a lunatic?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe, but I mean,
like when you meet someone at a party and they start talking to you. And you start, you know what I mean? Is there like, they must have no capacity to understand who you are.
I've been at this so long. I think they just see me as one of the weird Austin edgelord or tech bro types.
Okay.
I'm just, in fact, I keep getting called that now in Austin publications, and Austin regards itself as, weird, keep Austin weird. So in some circles, I'm seen as kind of a mascot of that. And that's their way of patronizing me. Like, oh, look, there's Alex Jones, there's Cody Wilson, like they're these bizarre creatures that we created. They're figments of our own cultural creation. And so I'm regarded as just something kind of interesting, a sideshow or something.
Oh, like you're those twins in San Francisco or Emperor Norton or whatever.
Sometimes, look, I don't mean to suggest I'm that big or something out here, but when I am recognized, it's like, oh, wow, there's Cody Wilson. There's not even a kind of, it's not a political connection. It's just I'm a bizarre cultural like outcropping of whatever this is, So they haven't really put two and two together about the ramifications of what this technology means, and obviously it's only going to improve exponentially, in the next few years. Who do you mean by they? Like
I mean, when you meet strangers, or just like the Gen Pop.
Yeah, I mean I think they get what I'm going for, but it's so outside of their daily experience. What does it mean that guns are downloadable? Or maybe there's been time now to adjust to this idea. There's been about 5 years for a lot of people to think about it. I'm not sure. Maybe we should give them credit.
It would no. Think about this. I think it would be worse for you if you were NRA than you doing what you're doing, because NRA, they understand and they're the bad guys.
Maybe, yeah. Well, our enemy shoots their wad, right? To use, they say, well, the NRA is a terrorist organization. Well, what do you do when the Austin, Texas, literal terrorist organization shows up and was like, we're gonna put the guns on the internet. You've got nothing left to describe this, so right. you just prefer to ignore it, I suppose.
Tell me about the first. What gave you the idea? I mean, this is such a brilliant idea. What gave you the idea to 3D print a gun?
It was Assange. It was. It was WikiLeaks when in 2011 and in 2010, all the Cablegate and all that stuff. We were like, wow, WikiLeaks, cool. what else can you, create with a WikiLeaks? Like, can there be WikiLeaks for guns? That was literally like the conversation that we had. So before I even discovered the discourse of like crypto anarchy and all this other stuff, we saw we had this intuition that what WikiLeaks was doing was this, different way of performing politics in the internet age. How could we get in on that? How could we do something like that? And we applied it to the firearm because we're shit kickers from Arkansas and Texas, right? What else do we even know how to do? So that was it. And then the 3D printing was just the convenient thing. It was a new technology. We thought this would be a great way to demonstrate this concept of the downloadable gun. So we literally taught ourselves to 3D print a gun because we wanted to demonstrate the downloadable gun concept first.
So was this the kind of thing where until you actually manufacture it, you're like, this shit can't really work. It can't be this simple.
Yeah, because I had no experience with 3D printing. I didn't really know how to get it done, and it took me a long time, many months, and talking with engineers and machinists, and a lot of the commentary on the lead up to it was, but this isn't really going to work. Like at first it was like, hey, you guys are even charlatans because it won't work. Right. And then it got to, well, God bless you boys. Like, even though it won't work, you're doing important stuff. And then, the day it works, it's like, well, we always knew it would work. Good job.
Wait, so do you still have the very first 3D gun you printed?
Yeah.
That is so cool. So,
my engineer has no sentimentality, though. So he was like, let's keep testing it. So he put a higher caliber of cartridge in it, and he blew it up.
Oh.
But I still have it.
Wait,
it's just kind of like
what went through your head the first time you fired a 3D printed gun?
Well, the very first time I fired one by hand is actually on video.
Okay.
It's that one I fired for Wired and BBC. It's this white, I just thought, well, let's risk it. Let's put our skin in the game, as Taleb would say. I didn't know what would happen, but I knew there was a pretty good chance that if it fired, that it would be what I wanted to be, this big world event. So I just went for it, and I thought, well, I hope I don't kill myself. I mean, It was I was trying not to think anything, to answer your question, just trying to survive. I was scared of it when I shot it.
Yeah, it's like holding firecrackers or something. It's like at some point you're like, is this going to go off in my hand?
Yeah, I was sure it was like 50-50. It would embarrass me, or it would, propel me.
So you were basically at that point the typical progressive who thinks guns basically can spontaneously start blowing up and killing people. But in this case, you were right.
These guns, they kill people.
Right. These guns actually maim people. It's not propaganda.
I can tell you something about that Liberator printer, that pistol we made. Like my engineer, the Liberator engineer, he's still never successfully fired one.
Wow.
That's how unreliable they are. I have fired them about with 50% success on camera, and that's with really, really trying. So they're difficult to make work. We were lucky at that first chance to get it to work.
So when it actually worked, what was it like? What was your thought process? It must have been adrenaline through the roof, and like, holy shit, I kind of got a genie out of a bottle.
Yeah. I looked at the cameras and the journalist stuff when it happened, and I didn't know what to say. They were like, well, and I was like, look, things are going to be different. In my mind, that was the inauguration of like the downloadable gun as a cultural concept. It was really here. This whole thing was printable, and even though it's still a bit of a meme, right? Like I still don't think guns are 100% printable in any real way, but it spelled this whole new way of thinking about the future of our culture. And maybe we still haven't seen the real dividends of that yet, but that's okay. Like this victory in court is another plank to ensure that we will.
So let's play devil's advocate, and because I'm sure there's a lot of questions you get all the time that you have very answers to. Isn't the problem with this that now I can bring, because the gun's made with resin, correct? It's not made of metal except for one part, correct?
Printed plastics.
Printed plastic, yeah. So isn't this going to be a problem because now anyone can bring a gun on a plane and get it past the TSA?
So it's been a problem. I mean, as you said earlier in our interview, when the files went onto the internet, just because I took them down off of my site, that didn't mean they disappeared. They went everywhere else. So for 5 years now, anyone could have brought that pistol into a courthouse or on an airplane. And I suppose maybe they have and you don't know it, but it doesn't seem to have been a devastating, effect on the culture. But I want to point out that my victory, this settlement doesn't just apply to the plans for 3D printed guns. It applies for, and like I just brought this for effect, but it applies to the plans for this gun, right? This is an M9. This is a historical gun that we all know and care about. It applies for the digital technical data for all guns, the capital stock of all guns, past and present, and of course the weird guns that are to be. It means, though, that this settlement means that Americans have the right to traffic in this data online. So you don't have to become a gun printer. Let's say you're interested in the full computer-aided design assembly of the AR-15. You can download that from my website, free and clear now. I think that's an important addition to our culture.
So I can right now, if I had a 3D printer, I could make an AR-15 in my home.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you can take the CAD for the AR-15, and if you're really motivated and you want to make it exactly how it's made, you can use tools to do that because you have the plans, right? You have the engineered drawings. You can use CNC machining, or you can use drill presses, or there's so many different ways to get to Rome, if you will. You don't need a 3D printer. 3D printing was an excellent way of demonstrating this because the technology had been kind of undefined in the public imagination, and it was a quick way of it's a quick handle. Like, people call lots of different things 3D printing that aren't necessarily so.
Okay.
It's just a quick way of getting a handle on what we mean by digital manufacturing.
But I don't know how to put. I don't even know how to put together, tie my shoes. So I'm not.
Well, that's okay.
But the 3D printing, like, what level of gun are we at where I can 3D print it in my home with having no technical knowledge?
Okay, sure. The question of 3D printing, then, it still requires nylons and plastics and engineered composite materials. So we're still talking about, if you really want, we're still talking about plastic guns at that stage.
Okay.
Now, I sell a desktop milling machine, which is the same price as a 3D printer. This thing's about $1,800. That thing will finish,
and which is going to be cheaper as with any technology. The prices are going to start imploding, I'm sure, within the next decade.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to 3D printing, it's actually a pretty good price. Some of these printers are still multiple thousands, but that today finishes for you. So it's a milling concept. It's not the same as printing. People will call it a printer, but it'll finish AR-15 receivers, 1911 receivers, and frames, and other guns, and their components out of metal. It will finish these for you. At the end of this month, the beginning of next month, we'll showcase how it will finish polymer Glock frames. This is, if you want to call this 3D printing, then this means that you can finish the important components of handguns and rifles for yourself right now in your home, and that they're not printed, they're not plastic, they're the real deal. They're just as good as what the military has, and that you've done this under your own power. You've at least made it in a way that you don't have to serialize it, so you've ensured yourself a certain level of privacy. And then the rest of it's just buying the parts online and assembling them, like Legos or something, which is something anyone can do, even if you're uncomfortable tying your shoes.
So, could I order one of these and have it sent to my house in Brooklyn? Is that legal?
Order
one of these
machine?
Machines, yeah.
Yeah. I got people in New York and I got people in Manhattan running this thing, man. The important thing is to know that your laws state by state. So the types of guns that you make with one of these machines, there are requirements about their configuration. Like in New York, an AR-15, when you make an AR-15, it has to be according to a certain configuration. You guys have the SAFE Act in New York, and Connecticut, for example, has feature tests. And so there's a state-by-state thing when we talk about the East and West Coasts. But yeah, you can make an AR-15 in Brooklyn with my machine, and it can be legal.
Wow. So, legal?
Of course.
I mean, it's not. Is it legal, or is it the kind of thing where if they came to my house for a search and found it, I'd go to jail?
No. I mean, it's legal to possess. Look, I'm not a lawyer, but it's legal to possess an AR-15 of a particular configuration in Brooklyn. It's legal to make it, and there's no requirement that you tell anyone about it. So when I talked about one of my customers being arrested earlier in California, well, he got arrested for good reasons. He committed some felony. But I'm saying when they visited his home, they didn't expect to see that he had an entire art that he had built because, well, why would they have known?
Right.
And this is something that this technological moment allows you, and machines like mine allow you.
Is he going to have consequences for having that arsenal, though?
Oh, probably, sure. But that's only because he was already in a position where he shouldn't have had those guns. So I don't mean to dissuade you from investigating. The basic rules are this. I mean, obviously, whatever your state law is, you have to know that. But the basic rules federally are: if you're allowed to own whatever type of gun it is. Like here, this is a Beretta M9. Like if I'm
Right.
allowed to own a Beretta M9, I'm also allowed to make that under federal law. There's nothing standing in my way. So I can make Berettas all day long back here. Have a bunch of I don't know, shot monkeys pump them out for me or something. And why would there's no law there to say like, well, that's not right. You can't do that. The only time the federal government starts to care is if you begin to sell or distribute these for profit and go into the business, as they say. That requires a license. But individuals they're not regulated in their manufacture of Title I weapons in this country, and nor have they ever been.
Michael Malice here to tell you about BetDSI.com. They've been in business for over 20 years paying winners and are top rated on all the sportsbook review sites, as it has an easy-to-use mobile playing interface. You play, you win, you get paid. BetDSI has a great mobile app. It's easy to use from anywhere, and they offer live in-game wagering. You can make plays throughout the entire game and events. They offer odds on pretty much everything else too, including major sports, politics, reality TV. BetDSI.com is pretty much everything. I highly recommend BetDSI.com if you want to add a little excitement to the games you're watching. Go to BetDSI.com and use promo code WELCOME100 for a 200% bonus on your initial deposit. One of the things I tweeted about is most people don't realize that in America in 2018, the Supreme Court is probably the most radical branch of government in terms of their view of the law. They're the ones who are real. Like if you with the what was that not the Held decision, the Citizens United, they were striking down laws from 100 years ago. They were one vote away from striking down Obamacare, and the last time the Supreme Court struck down a federal program was in the 1930s. And the point I made is we're almost at a point, building on the Heller decision, that you're going to have the Supreme Court striking down laws on a state and local level in the same way that you really can't have state and local laws that violate the First Amendment. And there's not going to be any recourse there. And that's really going to cause people to have meltdowns.
I think you're right. Like if they get Kavanaugh on, and it looks like they will.
And a sixth one.
Yeah. I say even with Kavanaugh, though, I think you've got, on cert petitions, you need 4 justices to vote. And it had been the rumor that Roberts or Kennedy were often the people that would prevent these Second Amendment cases after McDonald from getting onto from being considered. So now that you have Kavanaugh, you might get a lot more cert petitions granted on 2A cases. And so you're going to see an avalanche probably of blue state briefs challenging assault weapons bans, challenging, all this stuff. And I think you're going to start to see them overturned. You remember Kavanaugh dissented in the DC assault weapons ban. I mean, he's on the record being like, yeah, I think the AR-15 is protected by the Second Amendment. I mean, that decision alone would be just huge. We got the Fourth Circuit, the Second Circuit, all these panels adopting Bloomberg rhetoric saying, "Oh, keep these weapons of war off our streets."
Right.
And that's only gun people really care about this, but that's the kind of other gem of my settlement decision. This was the first time in black letter that the feds, because the State Department decides what actually is a weapon of war. It actually makes this designation. And in my settlement, it said, look, all semi-automatics up to 50 caliber, non-military.
Wow.
We consider them non-military. That's actually persuasive authority for when we get Kavanaugh and everybody starts challenging all this stuff. Like you'll begin to see, like you're saying, all kinds of bans overturned because
the State Department on the record, like, hey, you guys said this yourself. We're using your own words. This isn't, now you're changing. Wow, that's it. And it's really funny. I think it was Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut, when Kavanaugh was nominated, tweeted out something like he's a Second Amendment extremist, and if he had his way, we would strike down all gun laws. And I just retweeted it and I wrote, "What an odd endorsement of Brett Kavanaugh."
Oh wait, I think it was Chris Murphy, and I think what I saw this on your feed, and you said, "Stop! I can only get so erect."
That's right. That's true. Wait, so
and I was like, "God."
Was Twitter messing with you because your profile was messed up for a bit?
No, I deleted all my tweets, so that was buzz. Yeah, I wanted to, be quiet before I was loud again.
So, I mean, who would you, to those people who still think the political process is the way to go, who would you think are the strongest people in Congress who get this issue, and who you would say are actual allies?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm asked to do this sometimes by liberals too, like, tell us who you like, so as a way to like tar that person.
Yeah.
Look, I can't help my upbringing, it's fun for me, like when there is somebody who's living out an ethos or a set of political principles, and isn't just a dog, and I don't know that extends really to anybody at more than any given time. Like, for example, Mitch McConnell is just like the essence of your wheeler and dealer, but I respect the aristocratic, I respect like his noblesse oblige and just the raw power politics of, during an election year being like, yeah, no, we're not even going to consider Obama as Supreme Court nominee.
Yeah, when there was that photo of him smirking after, I don't remember, when they were going to just, screw the filibuster, Democrats flipping out. And I just tweeted out, the cocaine hits you just right.
I respect this palace intrigue, how these people wield power, and it's fun to watch. Just I enjoy the soap opera like everyone else does.
Yeah.
But let's see, who's a principled politician that I was comfortable. I thought with the idea of Ted Cruz at some degree. Back when he was running for president, I was like, okay, I could live with that. I like Trump just as a force of nature, right? Like, and you're getting. How can you be never Trump? Like, as I understand the Bill Kristol concept and stuff, when he's giving you literally more conservative victory than you could have even hoped for.
Right.
He's just such a force. But I don't know. To really answer your question, I guess it's guys like Mike Lee and Cruz who try to live out some type of bizarre, 18th century ethos or something. I don't have a great answer for that.
So what do you say to those people who are like, why does America have such a problem with gun violence? And having more guns is just going to cause more dead kids and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to how you interpret the figures and the statistics. I mean, for our per capita gun ownership, it's actually a pretty decent violent crime rate, right? It's actually a pretty reasonable gun homicide rate. And when we do digest the numbers even further, we see and can begin to see specific causes for the gun crime that we do see. It isn't white people in North Dallas shooting each other to death in the streets, right? And I'll probably leave my analysis at that comment. But there's reasons to, understand and interpret the problem beyond just like, wow, we have a gun problem in this country. And then really my best answer is, well, this isn't my problem. I'm making the guns downloadable now. You have to adjust your politics to this fact. And if this really is a problem, you need to examine what you can do about it, because the gun ain't going away.
Right. So you were the one also behind Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
So
I built that.
Yeah, so Patreon was for all the people that Patreon didn't support. And you had some probably the most the most deplorable people on the internet. This was a way to fund money, but now it's down.
I'd say that like my payments processing has basically been nuked. The site itself was still up, but it was very difficult. I was going through processors about every month while we were scaling, and I had the most objectionable people for the longest amount of time. Like, as soon as Richard Spencer moved to like Chuck Johnson's platform, for example, like they canceled like that. I had all these things built that like we lasted for months. It was beautiful. And then Heidi Bertrich at the Southern Poverty Law Center, she was emailing me. This was months after the fact, and after we went down, she was like, by our calculations, you funded 13% of the alt-right in 2017. And I was like, awesome. That's incredible.
It's a lucky number.
One website, one guy.
Did you feel? I mean, you're obviously not a Nazi, right? So did you feel? How did that make you feel?
No.
Right, that you're funneling money towards people who are pretty legitimate actual Nazis.
Well, I wrote a piece about this in Jacobite just to address the controversy. I mean, I still identify as an anarchist, or at least post-left, but I don't think it's rhetorically useful to diagnose everybody right of center as fascists. It just isn't.
Sure.
It doesn't work. And there's Rushton, and there's all this. There's Burkean conservatives, and there's all these weird new right configurations happening in Europe.
Didn't you have Weave on there?
Of course.
But
And Anglin, my most popular guy was Anglin, who kind of is a Nazi, right?
And Weave literally has a swastika tattoo on his chest.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying we didn't. And look, I had the American Nazi Party at one point. I had like legal Nazis, but here's the real distinguishing point. Like, the American Nazi Party is a legal political party, right? Like, this is.
Do you mean the Republicans?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The geo. Well, look. I mean, you have to. I've learned a lot about speech and what it is to defend some of this stuff. Some of the most difficult decisions for me weren't administering literal Nazis on the site. It was the more bizarre things on the internet that people never encountered. Like I had locale sites. I had things that, like that bridge the line between like, is this harassment? Is this
Right.
speech? Like, what is this? And this was actually, Patreon was incredible for me because I was constantly having to draw lines and clarify my own thought about like, well, what is acceptable? What is permissible? Like, it was interesting to do that. And I think it's a valuable exercise for people who claim to be, connected in any way to speech and enforcement of speech norms.
Yeah, like for me, my Twitter or YouTube, I do try to have rules that are objective for myself, because then it's not arbitrarily like, oh, I don't like you, therefore I'm going to block you. I don't think that's useful, and I think that's bitchy in a bad sense. So what kind of little principles did you set for yourself in the process? Because it becomes this kind of discovery process where you're like, let me try this, and like, wait, no, that's too much. Then you try it this way, no, that's too little. It's a Goldilocks situation, kind of stumbling your way towards these kind of principles.
I guess it's no secret that I enjoyed, like philosophical inquiry to some degree. So this was my excuse to go back through like J.S. Mill and the history of, the English production of the thought about the freedom of speech, and, Milton and Intro to the Age of Reason and all this stuff. And it was great. I got to go back and really test my own thinking. And I got to develop rhetoric for CNN and stuff. I mean, it was fun. I don't know though. Like, I can't really answer your question directly. I had heuristics. I developed policies about, let's say, like the Office of Foreign Asset Control and State Department terrorist lists and stuff like that. Like, I'd be like, look, if you're on the State Department list, I can't do anything for you.
Right.
I can't fund actual like designated terrorists. So, okay, we'll hang that there. What else will we do? Okay, are you a debarred foreign national for purposes of GSA? Like, have you committed fraud against the government? Have you been convicted of fraud or financial crimes? I probably can't fund you. So I would find ways to weed people out. But that's involved, and believe me, man, I never made any money doing that. And in the end, what stopped it was Visa themselves decided, Patreon is against our terms of service, and they deleted or whatever, canceled my master merchant accounts and fined me like $75,000.
Oh my God.
That's what Visa's God. MasterCard, Visa, these places are God. So I didn't get in trouble. That's just the way that they express their dissatisfaction. They'll give you a heavy fine. You just have to eat it.
Well, that's anarcho-capitalism for you, huh?
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks.
I woke up, I was like, the bank account looked a little light. Exactly. All this, and it rubs me raw sometimes. This whole, I'll see the unseasoned libertarian online be like, well, it's good that Facebook can kick you off. They're a private company. It's like, it's good that Visa can just like,
right.
end your business. Like, all right, guys, fine, but I can tell you've never lived it.
Well, it's also funny because like a lot of times I've had this argument on Twitter, like this whole idea like they're private companies, so you can't criticize them. It's like the whole principle is that in a free society, you use ostracism and boycott and things like this, nonviolent means to mitigate how corporations work. But as soon as you criticize Twitter or Facebook, you have some of these clearly on the spectrum libertarians yelling at you like, they're a private company, they could do what they want. It's like, yeah, just like if my friend comes to my house, he can, in a literal sense, shit in the sink, but I have a right to tell him that, and that's not violating his freedom of movement. Right.
Or let's bring out some of the implicit threats in American culture. Like, okay, you get deplatformed from Patreon, and the spectrum libertarian says, well, build your own platform.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we did. And it didn't work. Because every other integrated component in this entire economy is against you doing that. So Google doesn't want it. PayPal doesn't want it, right? The financial networks don't want it. Visa doesn't want it. This is a lot of people not wanting it at this point. And your answer can't literally be every single time, well, just build a new Visa. Okay, well, I don't have $100 million,
Right.
I don't, I'm not going to own an acquiring institution anytime soon. So I guess that means I don't get to have what I want. But I'm still not going to disagree with them. I'm just going to say that there's a certain level of unreality here. You have to be able to confront the fact that Facebook is your enemy.
Well, it's also the idea that like this is what you're solving with the guns, is that there's a cost of entry, right? So, for example, if the solution to Bitcoin, to Visa, is going to be Bitcoin and things like this. If Patreon was based on
Yeah.
Bitcoin, right away, Visa is irrelevant, PayPal are irrelevant. So, and the cost of building a website now is almost nil. So it's very easily these cost of entries, which have to be And here's the thing: I tell people, who will build the roads and so on and so forth. You don't have to convince anyone of anything. All you have to do is have that easy pass in your car. And this road is private and this one's public, and you, as it goes through, it takes the 5 cents, whatever, and you don't have to have any philosophical backgrounds, just so much as the roads are going to be cheaper and the costs are lower. You don't have to persuade anyone of anything. So I think that's what it comes down to. So yeah, like right now, the costs are astronomical and there are these high costs of entry, but at the same time, people like you are like, okay, this is where the barriers to freedom are the highest. What can we do to engineer a solution, as opposed to get on the phone with Visa CEO and say, no, you really should be funneling money to Weave.
Look, that's all fair. I guess is it my contribution? I don't know. I'm not going to wait for Bitcoin Lightning networks or pull technology to exist there, right? Like, I'm going to try to do things in the present.
Sure.
And frankly, like, I think there are interesting things that can be done with Visa. And look, maybe that's just me. Like, plenty of people said, well, let's wait around and one day there'll be downloadable guns. But it still takes, like, a guy or an organization, to kind of, I don't know, be the icebreaker and sue the feds for 5 years, for example. Yeah. So, I don't know.
No, I'm agreeing with you. That's why I said hero at the very beginning, because the thing is, what you also did with Patreon and people who are attacking Facebook is they're identifying the problem. And that's the first step. And then the second step is going to be the people who know how to engineer the stuff to be like, okay, this is a problem. Yeah. Is the solution going to be a plebiscite, or is the solution going to be that one dick, in Brooklyn or in Austin, who's going to sit down and be like, okay, how do I engineer a workaround that's low cost, that's irreversible? And that's how all these things, like another thing is with publishing. I did a Kickstarter for my Kim Jong-il book and I got 30 grand because the publishing houses couldn't wrap their heads around it. Is it humor? Is it history? When you turn a book over and look at this back cover at the upper left, it has the subject where you're going to put it in. This one, it's kind of an amalgam of different areas. Plus, it was weird and unprecedented. They didn't want to touch it. It's like, okay, I'll do it myself. And I got on C-SPAN, so there was no stigma to it as it might have been 10 years ago, because the cost of barrier of entry, even in terms of reputation, have lowered dramatically. And right now, Visa, for the average person, means a lot more than Bitcoin or Tezos or Litecoin, because they don't know what those are. It's magic internet money. But within a few years, the argument's won.
I think, there's reasons for optimism to this degree. By the way, did you get Bronze Age Pervert's book? You know about that?
Of course I know. I was talking to Moldbug, and he says that the real reader of the alt-right is Bronze Age Pervert.
You need to... I was just thinking of a recent episode of Successful Self-Publishing, and there you go. Ran up all the lists and everything, but bravo to the man. At the same time, like, I don't... Like, I take comments like yours, and we have conversations like this in libertarian and new right circles a lot. There's lots of reasons for optimism. I see people doing brilliant things all the time. Still, I try not to lapse into a kind of, I don't know, because it's its own type of progressive faith in the end. And I know that everything right now still requires, like, the word I want to use is heroics, but I'm not trying to compliment myself. I'm just saying you have to put skin in the game.
I'm sorry, but like, if you're spending 5 years of your life suing the federal government to ensure a basic freedom, I think that's pretty damn heroic.
Well, look, I mean, thanks. I still enjoyed doing it. It wasn't like a philanthropic idea to me. It was fun. It was adventurous, and it gave my life meaning. Right? What else was I going to do? So I still think, I don't know. I haven't really developed this out, but other than the fact that things like episodes like mine and episodes like this thing with Patreon and Facebook, and they spell out the total condensation of technical functions in a really hegemonic way. Yeah. That isn't always anticipated or diagnosed correctly in libertarian theory. I don't know that power was ever assumed. It was never assumed that things were going to be this bad, if you will, or this condensed. And it's not always healthy to just expect, when I get this learn liberty type rhetoric, like, well, it's a private company, and don't worry, you'll have a private company. And one day, like you say, convincing a majority of people is something, right? Like, this isn't the good method. Still, like, you have to understand that there's these collusive, bizarre forces, and there's not an even playing field. And I don't know. I just counsel the libertarian against falling into a simple doxology. I don't know.
Oh no, I agree with you completely. My just point is when people are like, things are worse than ever and things are losing every front. It's like, what's your data? Lifespan is better. Information is cheaper and accessible by virtually every. Yeah, like people are shrieking in colleges and the fact that Putin met with Trump was described in MSC as Kristallnacht. Yeah, the rhetoric is insane. But at the same time, that person on MSNBC is being mocked in Twitter on real time that very second. Yeah. So that's why I'm very... And I look, the fact that you did what you did, the fact that I could bring Dear Reader to market and get on all the major shows and kind of advocate for a peaceful resolution to the North Korean situation is something I couldn't have done 10 years ago. So it's hard for me, on a personal level also, if you don't have that, Rand talks about this, if you don't have this benevolent universe premise, if you don't have this idea that good things are possible and hope is possible, you're fucked because it takes emotional fuel to fight for your values, no matter who you are. And especially for people who are going against the grain, as opposed to get their emotional fuel by being dogs howling with the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I think. Look, all good advice. I'll give you a little inside baseball though. Like in my case, or whatever had helped motivate me, I didn't cast it in terms of the good is possible and one day we'll get there. I had to literally use like essays from Baudrillard and like Virtuality and Event comes to mind. And I had to believe in things like, well, actually, I'm on the side of radical negation, and I'm the voice of evil, and this empire of the good will try to absorb me, and then that will be like all this. You have to actually believe that you're like a dissolving force, a solvent force in history, and it's narcissistic and bizarre world historical stuff. But like, I still believe that we have to fight against everything that ostensibly is there to help us.
Oh yes.
We have to fight against this stuff like, the world's getting better. Like, we have to actually fight that, and you have to be prepared to be the enemy of that type of rhetoric and that type of understanding. I suppose then this is simply a difference of description and attitude.
Cody, I'm so glad we finally got a chance to talk. People can find you at what's your URL? We have it at the bottom third of the screen, correct? Okay. Is he logged off?
Shit, am I gone?
Oh, no, you're good. You're there. Okay. I will talk to you soon. You just vanished for a second. And I look forward to coming to Austin and finally actually getting to break bread at some point.
Let me buy you a drink, man. I'd be happy to have you.
Awesome. Talk soon, Cody. Thank you.
We'll see you.